Welcome to this edition of Soul of Warren County. I'm your host, Mickey Gwynn. We're taping this episode in the month of February. And as you know, February is also Black History Month. The theme for Black History Month for 2022 is Black Health and Wellness. And I'm honored to have in the studio with me today someone who's dedicated the majority of their life to the medical profession. I have with me nurse practitioner Shauna Samuel. Shauna, welcome to Soul of Warren County.
Thank you for having me.
I always like to start out our program with a little walk down history lane.
Okay.
So if you could tell us a little bit about the early years of Shauna.
Okay. Early years. Well, most people may or may not know, I was adopted at age 2, and by Hugh and Susie Locke, and raised here, had a good life. I was placed in foster care, I guess, from age 9 to like 16. A lot of people may not know that. And I lived in Salina, Tennessee, for a couple of years. And then after that, Fred Locke Jr. and his wife, Gail, took me in for about a year or so until my stepmother, Gwen Bonner, she married my dad, Hugh Locke, later, became a foster parent and then took me in, and then they got married. But the reason that I'm telling you all that is I know a lot of people, especially kids today, are having trouble, whether it's social pressures or whatever, and they think they can't do things because things are not going their way or they don't think things are panning out for them. But you can do it. Don't let your past history or your life or whatever stand in the way of you getting things done. Don't use it as a crutch, basically, I would say. Use it to motivate you and do what you need to do and take care of business, basically.
What were some of your goals early on? What did you want to do?
I wanted to be an astronaut.
All right.
We grew up in a time where there wasn't Google or, computers. So if you wanted to learn about things like that, you actually had to go to the library and do some digging. I wrote a lot of letters to NASA. Got press packets, press kits, which they would actually send you like the patches for each mission. They give you the full press kit, the photos, everything about that mission. It was really cool. So I used to have a big book on that. And but you had to be pretty strong in math, and I'm not. But I thought another way to get around that would be to do the military thing, actually. So I was in ROTC throughout high school, 9th grade through 12th. I remember in 9th grade, Sergeant Talbot and First Sergeant or Master Sergeant Brewington, they would go around the class and they'd ask people, do you want to be a leader or you want to be a follower? And everybody's like, leader, leader, leader. And I was like, follower. And they kind of looked at me, and then after going through everyone, they said, because you want to be a follower, we're going to make you a leader. And so that day, they made me a squad leader. Of course, I marched people into the grass and stuff like that. But after that, they molded me and kept promoting me. So eventually, when I was a senior, I was a battalion commander. I had been color guard commander. Did a lot of stuff, and I thought military was going to be my route. But 2 pounds kept me out.
And what service were you looking to go into?
Army.
The Army. Okay.
I wanted to be a test pilot. So, but I could not get in. So there's that.
It's interesting you say that. I just thought about my entrance into the Air Force. This was 76. And you know how it is before you're getting ready to go in, at least for me. I was having the best time of my life. I was running around. I was not eating well, and things of that nature. And I went down to do my physical. And I went and weighed in. And the technician that was there at the time said, boy, you're lucky. And I'm like, what? Lucky? Why? You're 2 pounds over your minimum weight. And I think my minimum weight was like 124 pounds. So I weighed about 126 pounds when I went in the Air Force. It was long. I don't weigh that now by any means.
Right.
But yeah, it sort of reminded me of that, of how I almost didn't make the weight issue also when I got ready to go in the Air Force. But that wasn't so bad. Things worked out okay for you. It's just interesting that you had those kind of goals at that young of age. And I didn't know that NASA sent out press
Oh,
kits and
yeah.
things of that nature.
Oh,
I didn't
absolutely, for
realize that.
free. Yeah, all you had to do was write them. So I wrote to Kennedy and the Marshall flight centers. You can just request them. I'm not sure if you can get them now. A lot of things are online.
Right.
But back then, they would send you the whole packet, and it was just the neatest thing, you know.
So was this during the Apollo missions mainly, or was it up through the shuttle?
Up through the shuttle,
Up through the
right.
shuttle too?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah, because Gwen, I remember when, you know, the shuttle exploded and it had snowed. We were out of school that day because we had this big snowstorm, and she was at work, and she called and said, have you had the TV on? And I said, no, not yet. She said, you need to cut the TV on. So I cut it on, and you could see, you know, the shuttle exploding.
Yeah.
And she said, she says, I guess someone doesn't want to be an astronaut now. And I said, why would you care? You get the $1 million. You know, if I die, so you would benefit. And she says, that is not funny. And I was like, I'm just letting you know, I don't care. I understand the risk.
Right, right.
You know, so, so I understood that. So, you know, if you're wanting to do that, then, you know, it is what it is. You just take your chance, right?
Well, yeah. That's similar to the military, a lot of other risky type of professions. If it's something you want to do, you just go for it. You just go
Exactly.
for it. Yeah. So the astronaut didn't work out way well. The military didn't work. How did you get to nursing?
Wasn't my choice.
Was it just?
So, you know, I was really upset that I couldn't get in the military. I tried for like a year and a half to go. You know, you go every 2 or 3 weeks to weigh in. They knew me at the MEPS by name. They'd see me standing back there, and they'd say, oh, ha, 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 look who's back there. There's Locke. You think she's going to ship out the dope? Nope. You know, and Gwen would say, I'll have supper waiting on you when you get home. I'm like, I might ship out. She says, no, you won't. So I had to weigh 106 and only weighed 104.
Okay.
So anyway, long story short, I ended up moving to Chattanooga for a little bit with some friends. Then we moved down to Atlanta, ended up having 2 kids. My mother said, enough of that, you're coming home. And you're going to, you know, get you a real job. I was working like 2 and 3 jobs down in Atlanta,
Right.
you know, and she says, that's not how we're going to do things. Come home, you're going to go to school. And I said, but I don't know what I want to be. She says, you're going to be a nurse. I'm like, I don't know what a nurse does. And she says, you'll learn. And so anyway, and at that time, I didn't know the difference between an LPN and an RN.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an LPN. Well, initially she worked at JCPenney. Many people may know her from JCPenney's.
Right.
She worked there for 20 plus years and then went to nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an LPN, and she said, well, you need to do the research and decide which one you want to be. And I'm like, well, can't you just tell me? She says, how about you read it? So anyway, so I learned that LPNs, you know, they had the skills-based, you know, it was 1-year program. You can get out and make decent money, you know, and then you can go to, you know, to RN school.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that and was excited on my first day, and then got in there, was terrified after that because you're holding your breath. The program was very hard at that time. You had to maintain an 81 average in each subject.
Mm.
If you fell below in any subject, you were out of the program.
Oh, okay.
And so they test, and like you would do clinical and test, but you never knew any given day you could be out. So you could make it all the way through and flunk, you know. So I was terrified. But I did well in the program. I felt like they were harder on me initially. And I had some great teachers and instructors. And one of them, her name is Diane Roberts, Miss Roberts. And we were doing clinical, and everyone else had like 1 patient, and I had 2 or 3.
Right.
And I'm like, why are you giving me 2 and 3? I don't think this is fair. She says, have you thought that maybe you were better than everybody else and you can handle it? And I was like, oh, no, ma'am. So anyway, things just worked out. And then for me, just medicine just kind of fell into place for me.
Good, good. And, you know, you talked about your mom pushing you, said, you're going to go into nursing, you know.
Right.
And I think sometimes that can be beneficial. I know when I was young, I was trying to, I wanted to go to college. I mean, that's
Sure.
what I wanted to do, was go to college, and didn't have the money to go to college. And I had an uncle that was in the Air Force, and he said, "Why don't you come try the Air Force?" I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And I always thought there was going to be this voice from the sky that said, "Mickey, you're going to be X."
Right.
I never got that voice. And really, even through my military career, a lot of times I really benefited from being in the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even did that after I got out. I was fortunate enough to get a computer degree back in 1989. Never used it for anything because I was never in that kind of job. I just kept getting promoted and kept going in. I was a med tech in the military, and I never got a chance to use my computer degree really at all during that time. And sometimes I wish I had somebody say, "You got to go do that, go do it." It worked out okay for me.
Sure.
And just like with you, it worked out
Yeah.
okay because I know nursing can be tough. As part of our training in the Air Force, we had to go through anatomy and physiology and all
Sure.
those kind of things. We didn't have to really do so much clinicals, but we had
Right.
to go through and that's hard. Some of those anatomy words you barely can pronounce and things of that nature.
Sure.
It's tough. It's tough. So I really commend you for hanging in there, especially when you was like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. I mean, some people who just, that's what I got to do. I'm going to do whatever I can to be a nurse. Yeah, but you're like, a little bit on the border at the beginning.
Yeah, but are you going to tell your parent no? No. You just
Not back in those days,
not
right?
in those days. You just said yes, ma'am, and move on, right? Yeah, so that's what it is.
Now, where were you in that program at?
Here in McMinnville.
Here in McMinnville,
Yeah,
okay.
it's the McMinnville Vocational Center, but now it's called Tennessee Technology
Okay,
Center.
okay,
But
okay,
it used to be McMinnville Votech.
Okay, you were in that. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you finished that program, did you go straight into a clinical environment?
I did. So, the luxury of being in an LPN program, they let you go through different clinical sites and things to see where you possibly would like to land and work.
Okay.
And so ER was always on my radar. However, in those days, you couldn't get into the ER initially coming out of school. You had to work a year on the med-surg floor.
Okay.
Then you could go into a specialty department. But then even then, no one left those roles. So you had people that had been in those roles for 20, 30 years, so you had the experience in there. And so you had to wait till either someone passed away or retired
Right.
just to get a spot, okay? Totally different now. They just let people go there. But even with that, I had to beg to get into the ER. So in the meantime, I worked the med-surg unit, I went to the OR, I worked rehab, I worked every department you could possibly work in while begging every shift, "Can I come to the ER? Can I come to the ER?" And they'd look at me and say, "No." So I just do it every day. And then finally one of the nurses says, "Please let her come."
Go to the ER.
He said, "We had her in school. She did a great job.
Right.
She'll be fine." So they let me come to the ER, and then I never left. I had to sign a contract saying I wouldn't change departments. But that's where I wanted to be.
Right, right. Yeah.
And it worked out. And then, so I did that, and then I went to, not paramedic school, I went to EMT school.
Okay.
I did that, did the IV portion, and then a couple of years after that, I did the paramedic, and still have those licenses, and then finally went to RN school at Tennessee State University, the
Okay.
2-year bridge program, and did that.
So you didn't shy away from probably the most hectic and stressful area in a hospital. You wanted to go to the ER.
Oh, absolutely. It's not boring. So you never know what you're going to get.
Right.
You may have a down day, maybe, but, you may have, colds and flu, or you may have some type of trauma, which I
Right.
usually work the trauma side, and that was the side that I wanted to have, the heart attacks, the strokes, the whatever. That's what I like.
So you obviously had the aptitude and the mental wherewithal to deal with those kind of things. So those can be some sort of stressful scenarios. I mean, it's not something that most people would want to get into, and you were knocking that door down to get into the ER. It's interesting that you wanted to do that. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so you did your ER time, you got your paramedic and EMT certification, got your degree to be an RN, came back out to McMinnville at that time?
I was still in McMinnville.
You were still in McMinnville during all that time?
Well,
Okay.
then after I got my RN, I was asked to be the house supervisor there, and I felt like that I was not ready. So one of the things that I don't do is jump into a spot that I don't think I will be successful.
Right.
So, maybe some people would just jump at the chance, but I felt like I needed a little bit more knowledge. So, even working in the ER and all those things, I was still getting education behind the scene, to make sure I knew what I was doing and all that. So, and then a few years, maybe another 2 years after that, I accepted the position because I felt like I had enough knowledge at that point. But then, Life Force had a position that came open, and so I applied and got that job to work at Erlanger on the helicopter for a brief time, and then also did some ER there. And so I moved to Chattanooga for a little while, worked mainly trauma in the ER, did well there, and got engaged, came back. And so went back to school. Well, worked at Tech and then went back to school and completed my BSN, then got my master's in leadership and management, and then applied to go to the University of Memphis for my nurse practitioner.
Okay. I want to back up just a little bit. You said you were asked to be the house
Supervisor.
Now, what does that entail?
You're mainly like the charge nurse for the whole hospital.
Oh, wow.
Okay. There's only 3 people in that role, so you're responsible for the whole hospital. So nights and weekends, so I worked the weekend shifts. It seemed like every time I stepped in the door, like the house started falling down. It just, everybody said I had a black cloud, and, but, we got through everything, and it was like 6 o'clock, I'd get into the office, get ready to get report, and then it's like some stat, something over there, and I'm like, I just walked in the door. Weird things always happen to me. I don't think it happened to anybody else, but.
So in that role, you still had a hands-on clinical requirement too, or?
So what I did, I rounded on every department, and I didn't like sitting in the office waiting for a phone call. Hey, can you come talk to this patient family or whatever? Because I was responsible for, checking the schedules, making sure we have enough nurse to patient ratios. Staying in budget, any complaints or issues that are going on, or if there's something going on that they need extra hands, or they had a question about something. But I constantly round it because that's how you walk into and find things that are going on, right? Whether a baby being born that you need to catch or whatever, And so, or some issue in the kitchen or with security or the fire department's coming, whatever.
So the whole realm of the hospital
Everything.
operations. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love that job.
And it sounds like it's a job that you could probably have, quarantine yourself in your office if you had wanted to, but you would want to still get out there and be in the fray, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they respect you more, right? So, you don't just wait for someone to call you. You show up and, maybe there's an issue going on or they may have a question, or I'm rounding on patients, making sure everything's okay. Checking on the nurses, is your day okay? Did you have lunch? Is there something else going on that I can help you with? I just kept moving the whole day. Keep moving.
Yeah. Seemed like you had sort of a similar type of attitude that I had when I was in the military. As you get up in the rank in the military, you start to get into more administrative type of jobs. You get out of the clinical environment.
Right.
And I used to always step back in when I had the time to do that. I always had this mindset of, I'm not going to let those young airmen know more than I know, And they used to kid me about, when you were in, we were doing things this way. We don't do it like that anymore. So I was like, well, show me. I always wanted to keep abreast of sort of the latest things that were going on. And that's how you do that. You have to go out and be available and be visible out in the clinical environment to see those things that are going on. So once again, commend you for doing that, because there's probably some that wouldn't. They probably would be in that office and, don't call me unless it's a dire emergency.
Right. Yeah, that's boring to me. I want to, keep my hands in it and stay busy.
So did the life flight interest come sort of a roundabout way of the astronaut interest?
There's one way to fly.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, there's one way to fly. Yeah, yeah, and but so I love the job. I love the thought of the job. But then when I got into it, it's really I felt like we were a glorified taxi, because EMS has already got the patient package. That's what I really loved too when I was on the ambulance.
Right.
So we're first or second on scene, maybe first responders on scene first.
Right.
But we had to do the packaging and get the patient ready for the helicopter. But when we get there, we're on the helicopter, you're just really loading the patient and then taking off,
Right.
getting them to wherever they need to go. So I did like the job, but like I said, it was more of I felt like a little taxi ride. So anyway, but I did, so when I worked at Erlanger, and I went to the ER, absolutely loved that because that was a very busy ER. We'd come in at night and you'd have, 70 people waiting in the lobby to be seen, but then it was a 40-bed ER. So, and you have
Big
all kinds of
operation.
stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like the life flight thing was a good experience.
Yeah.
But you were
It's not
looking
what
for
I
something to do
thought.
something,
It's
a
not
little
what I
bit
thought.
more involved and more. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I could see that because I guess there's somewhat of a limit of what you can do on the helicopter anyway. I guess.
No, so with Erlanger, Life Force is very, look, they're up to date. They have all the coolest things you could possibly do
Okay.
on there.
Okay.
You can, you can do labs in there. You can do, if you have, usually they're already intubated where they put a tube down into
Right.
their trachea. But we can put lines in. We can, give profab. You can, all these things for like snake bites or blood, plasma, you name it, it can be done. But not all services are created equal.
Right. I can
So, no,
see.
there's a lot you can do. It's tight squeeze, but you can do it.
Right. And I'm just as you're talking, I'm just thinking, you would have been a perfect air evac nurse in the Air Force. I don't know if you know about how the Air Force, but they have air evacuation
Yes, they
also.
do, yes.
They don't do as much helicopters because the Army does a lot more of that.
Right.
But they use fixed wing planes to do those
Yes.
kind of things. And I've been at a couple of bases that had air evac units, and they fly all over the world and do tremendous things while they're on those planes. So, yeah.
That would be cool, but I'm too old now.
Yeah, boy.
Unfortunately.
If we could only have gotten you in the Air Force. I could see where that path would have taken you. Definitely see that. Okay, so now we will sort of move up to, you got your master's degree. So
Yes.
Is that the point to where you start sort of the advanced training toward being a nurse practitioner, or how does that work?
Okay, excuse me. So you have, different masters. You can be a master of whatever, education, leadership, nurse practitioner, and then even in advanced practice, you have family nurse practitioners, you have CRNAs, which are certified nurse anesthetists, they're RNs. You have midwives that deliver babies, and then you have pediatric nurse practitioners. There's a whole mental health, there's a whole realm. Okay. So you just have to choose which one you would like to be. And I don't like being pigeonholed, as you noticed.
Right.
So why not do family, because it covers all.
Oh, right.
Okay. And so I applied to several schools and got in, but I chose Memphis because they were more aggressive and had more hands-on. Of course, there we go again, right? And so that's how I got into that. After asking several people, do you think I'm smart enough to do that job? Because I'd been a nurse 25 years by that time.
Right.
Before I went back.
Well, I think we see that you definitely had the aptitude to do those kind of things.
I wasn't sure.
You were questioning yourself a little bit. Probably a lot of people weren't questioning your ability
No,
to
everybody
do
was
that.
really nice about that. No,
Yeah.
they were like, no, you should absolutely go do it.
Okay, good. Now, I know one sort of different type of aspect of what you do is the honor guard. Can you talk to us a little bit about the honor guard?
Absolutely. So Nurse Honor Guard, the Warren County Nurse Honor Guard, what that is a new organization that we have here in Warren County. It's not a new organization, it's worldwide actually.
Okay.
It has been around for many years, we just did not have it here.
Okay.
Cookeville has one, and I had a nurse friend that passed away last November, and I asked them to come up and do her service.
Okay.
And it was very moving. And so I had spoken with one of my other friends who had posted maybe a couple of months prior to that if anyone would be interested in getting one started here. And, everybody was like, yeah. Well, then when I asked Cookville, theirs is called Tennessee Nurse Honor Guard, to come up and do Sandra Witt's service, I contacted them after that and said, hey, can we go ahead and get rolling on that? It would be a nice thing to have. And so last March, we had our inaugural meeting to kind of lay the groundwork, see how many people were really interested, get costs down. And then April had our official first meeting. And then since then, we've had either 7 or 8 services since then. And it's everybody's very impressed by it. They're thankful, and military has their honor guards, obviously.
Right.
And police has theirs, firemen have theirs. But we just didn't have anything for nurses here,
I was going to ask you, did your ROTC days play a little role in you wanting to be part of the honor guard?
Well, I guess you can correlate that kind of with the
Right.
military part, yeah. But just something for nurses, and we are kind of military-like,
Right, right.
right? So dressed in our uniform and all that, but no, it's an honor, and I'm glad we're here. It's worked.
Yeah. And congratulations on being Grand Marshal at the Christmas Parade. That's a nice honor to have also.
Yeah, we were pretty taken back,
Yeah.
about that. That was a total surprise. And Michael Benush he's the director at the Civic Center, I think, and handled the parade this year. And they asked us to be a part of that, and so the officers were the ones that were in the parade.
Right.
So myself, and then the president, Lisa Donaldson, Tracy Painter, who's treasurer, and Don Lowry, also treasurer. Our secretary couldn't be there, Kay Starr, but so we participated that to represent the group.
Yeah.
It was very humbling to have that experience.
I'm sure it was. I saw that article in the Standard. So it really did. And I would almost venture, I may be going out on a limb here, but you are probably the first African-American female nurse practitioner in Warren County.
I guess so.
I think so. History maker.
Okay. I'll just say okay.
Shauna Samuel, history maker, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Congratulations. You've had a very varied and successful career. And best of luck in the future. Thanks again. And thank you for joining us today. I'm Mickey Gwynn, and please join us for the next edition of Soul of Warren County. Until then, make this day and every day a great day. Thank you.